Hi guys, welcome to my sports channel, which is brand new. This is going to be the first video I ever post. It's going to be kind of like a talk show. I'm going to cover all teams. I'm going to mainly do football and basketball. I will throw baseball and soccer in there, but they're not my strong suit, so definitely a lot more of football and basketball. And to start off, with football preseason happening next month, let's get into some NFL teams and let's review how their off seasons went, because as we all know, as well as there is a few big time free agents available, most of the teams are pretty much squared away with who they are, what they're going to do, right? So let's start in the NFC. We'll start on the NFC East, considering the last four teams in the playoffs were three of them in the NFC East, and one went to the Super Bowl. So to get started, let's start out with the New York Giants, who exceeded everybody's expectations last year, especially in the first year of a rebuild, because typically that's the worst year you're going to have, and that's okay. It's the first year of a rebuild. The expectations aren't supposed to be that high, and that's all right. But what was not all right is they had negative 55 million dead cap, and that's just crazy for any new GM to have to come in and have to deal with and actually have success. And not only did they have success, they won a playoff series, which, give them credit, they had a lot of big holes and they went out and they won the playoff series, and it's awesome. Nonetheless, they were very smart by who they signed. Guys like Jalen Smith, Landon Collins, Jahad Ward, those guys really came in and they left an impact that really helped put the Giants into playoff contention. And a lot of their young guys like Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas, Daniel Jones even stepping up, Saquon Barkley, Isaiah Hodgins coming away, I think was huge. You even saw perks from Wan'Dale Robinson before he got hurt, and Adoree played very well. Xavier McKinney played well until he broke his ankle. That defensive line was really good. Linebacking core was a question mark. Cornerback 2 was a question mark. And receivers were a question mark, and that was going to be the issue for them. And to their credit, they won a playoff game with major holes. So I'm going to be going through what they did in the offseason and seeing if I can see this being long-term success. To start out, we'll do the draft, even though no free agency started beforehand. It'll be easier to go through the draft than free agency, right? So to start out with the draft, they needed another cornerback opposite side of Adoree Jackson. Now, with that being said, Adoree Jackson, whether you think he's a number one or number two, it doesn't matter. You still need an opposite side corner, or whatever Deonte Banks winds up becoming for them, he's going to become for them. But Deonte Banks is got elite traits all over the field. I believe he's 6'1", with insane speed, had to be like the highest vertical out of any corner in that draft, and he played very well. Now, the only knock to him is that he doesn't have a luxurious stat line, but if you watch his tape, he's going stride for stride with every receiver. There's not targeting him. And I mean, he shut down Marvin Harrison. I mean, that's no joke. I mean, guys like Joey Porter, who are great corners, struggled against them, and that's something to be said. And obviously, that was a great pickup for them, especially with the way the end of the draft went. I know they want a receiver, but in getting Deonte Banks is not a bad alternative at all. And you wound up addressing the receiver a little later in the draft, but we'll get to that later. You also went out in the second round. You got John Michael Schmidt, who is an elite center prospect. I mean, the guy's got all the tools to be a great center in the league. He was a superstar from Minnesota on that line. They ran the ball primarily because they had him at center. And the Giants' interior line wasn't that great. The tackle play was much better with Andrew Thomas making All-Pro and Evan Neal with an up and down. But, as the year gone on, you saw him definitely get a lot better. So they needed to upgrade the interior. Mark Lewinsky, though he's not the future, is not a bad serviceable right guard. There's a question mark at left guard, but you're not going to solve everything in one offseason. There's just not that much money to go around. But to get John Michael Schmidt, it just makes that line that much better. He's a plug and play. He's going to be there hopefully for the next 10 years for them. And if everything goes according to plan, Saquon, Daniel Jones are going to have a field day with that. They are, right? And that's just huge for that team, for what they want to do on the offensive side, as well as Dante Banks shoring up that secondary, which got exposed by Philly in the playoffs. And hopefully with the addition of Dante Banks and Dory on the other side, they can do some great things for New York going forward. And then you went out and you got Jalen Hyatt. You waited a little bit on receiver, and honestly, I don't think anyone would have blamed you if you got Jalen Hyatt in the second round. I mean, the guy's got elite speed. Are there route running questions? Yes. But is Brian Dable one of the best player development players? Yes. I mean, Jalen Hyde, in my opinion, could have gone to a better place and be with a better coach who's going to develop him. And with that speed, he's going to be immensely. And those right there really fill a lot of what they were missing. You got speed, you got a better receiver, so the receiving core got depth. You didn't have a cornerback number two. You got that. You didn't have a great center, though. John Feliciano is good. He's not. Well, he's a serviceable center, is what I mean to say. Like, he's good. He's not great. Um, and those are two major needs. I mean, with the rest of the draft, didn't really draft that much. I mean, Eric Gray could be good depending on the whole contract situation with Saquon, which we'll get into later. That's the only reason why I don't really want to go dive too deep into it. Trey Hawkins, who's nothing probably more than a special teams player. Jordan Riley's nothing more than depth at defensive tackle. And Gervarius Owens, I believe, is the other one who could make a run in that safety room, with safety being a question mark since Julian Love left. Though I'm not the biggest fan of him, I thought coverage-wise he was not very good. And, for free safety or strong safety, whatever he played, you kind of need that to be able to cover it somewhat. And he, especially coming out of college as a corner, I mean, I don't know. I thought he gave up a lot of big plays that didn't need to be given up. But Bobby McCain also has those question marks too, who they did sign, but we'll get into that later. But Travis Owens does have a chance to leave an impact, considering there is a spot open next to Xavier McKinney. That draft, I will give an A-. I mean, to their picks from round 1 to round 3 alone are going to give you a great draft. And I also like Eric Gray. Like, I think that he's a good running back, and they've solved a lot of holes there. But I think free agency is the big thing. I mean, getting Bobby Okereke is big. Because you had a major hole middle linebacker, and evidently linebacker is huge. You're the quarterback of the defense, and you don't got somebody there who can stand his ground and be that guy and that leader. You're gonna be in trouble. And as great as Jalen Smith was for that 1 year, and he did do his job, he wasn't it for the long term. And Bobby Okereke for the next 4 years hopefully will be that, or they will be in cap out with that. So we're going to have to wait and see how that pans out. But evidently, I mean, you're shoring up that defense. And you also went out and you got a Warrior to help play more depth at corner, because, injuries are going to happen. Adoree, Dante Banks definitely are going to probably at some point, get a bruise or something, sprain or whatever you're going to get throughout the football season to, take away from that. And, Warrior is never a bad option, especially as backup. And you get Aaron Robinson back. And Cordell Flott can even play on the outside. So their depth got a lot better. And you saw Cordell Flott kind of go off in the Minnesota game, and hopefully he continues to develop. He's not where he's going to be 100% yet, but he's going to get there, right? And Bobby McCain, he was the other safety you got. And, I think he's a little bit better coverage than Julian Love, but Julian Love's probably younger, a little bit better. But, you're getting him on a cheap deal. He's going to come in. He's going to, evidently, in my opinion, replace what you were missing with Julian Love. And that's why I think Owens has also a chance to be pivotal. You got Dane Belton, too. I forgot about him. So, safety-wise, Giants are sitting pretty good, man. I mean, it's kind of crazy to say, but they are. And I mean, that defense has gotten a lot better. And I mean, they have arguably the best defensive tackle duo, Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence. And you also go out and go get Ashawn Robinson and Nunez. I mean, now, when you got to rest those guys, you're not as worried because you actually got real guys in there. Now, the only thing I will say that I wish they did get more depth in is the edge rusher, because I love Kayvon. I love Azeez Ojulari, and Jihad Ward's obviously great at what he does. But there's not much depth after that, and that was another issue because Azeez has to prove he can stay healthy, and until he does, it's a risk. And if you don't have the depth there, you're just going to get rid of Azeez, and then you're going to struggle. So that's definitely one thing I wish I would have seen them do. But other than that, their defense is really good. I know middle linebacker 2 is kind of a question mark for them. Jared Davis was one they hope maybe could start Beavers or McFadden, but ultimately now with Jared Davis, out for the season. You got to think they're going to have to linebacker. I know they had Deion Jones on a visit, so keep an eye on him. And maybe Miles Jack, Zach Cunningham. I mean, there's a few guys who can come in and be that depth piece, right? Another guy actually you could sign as depth for the edge rusher is Justin Houston. He's not going to command a lot of money, and would be a great depth piece. He's older, but it's a 1-year deal. You're not going to go wrong with that, right? But let's move to the offensive end on the free agency. You lost Feliciano, you lost Nick Gates, which is tough. But getting John Michael Schmidt and J.C. Hauscher, I believe his name is, the center from Pittsburgh who went to Alabama. From Alabama went to Pittsburgh, is now with the Giants. So you pretty much replaced him, and John Michael Smith is a better long-term answer than Feliciano. But Feliciano is going to go down to San Francisco, and he's going to be a very serviceable center for them. And maybe, who knows, maybe for the next couple of years too. But nonetheless, he didn't do too much on the offensive line except for getting John Michael Schmidt on big impact guys, right? You're going to hope Bredesen or Nzuto could take over the left guard position, but the other line's a lot better. Now, you extended Daniel Jones, and I know some people are going to have an issue with the price you pay, but, quarterback market's going up consistently. He earned the right to have a good contract, and also I believe it's only 35 guaranteed with incentives up to 40 mil. I don't know if that's throughout the whole deal. I at least know that's for this year. It's kind of like that. It's a good setup deal. Where I think that they're going to be okay with that. And when Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow get their massive contracts, which they deserve, it's going to look like nothing. And that's just the final thing with it. But regardless, he signed to it. And, till proven otherwise, he showed he worked very well with Brian Daboll last year. So you got to, feel very confident in that as a Giants fan. Receiving, we know, was a big issue. And to get Jalen Hyatt, you go get Paris Campbell, Jamison Crowder, Jeff Smith. If I'm not mistaken, that's about it. You resign Sterling Shepard. You get Wandale back. And all of a sudden, you got really good depth there. Oh, and let's not forget Bryce Ford Whedon, who's a great receiver. More of a project, which I do question with the depth they have. Where is he going to develop? Because it's not like they have a G League like in basketball or the minors like in baseball. It's like he needs to play. He has really good potential if he plays, and that's my only concern with him, but he's got talent, man. And that receiving room is deep. It's deep. But surprisingly, the biggest receiver they brought in is not actually a wide receiver. It's a tight end named Darren Waller. Now, there is injury risk with him, but it's Darren Waller. I mean, the guy has been one of the better tight ends in the league for, the past 4 or 5 years. I mean, this guy has been really good, and when he's healthy. And I think last year it was more of the play calling just wasn't designed for him because, I would watch the Raiders games, and there was just no plays targeted to him. I mean, there was nothing there that looked like they were, when Gruden was there, for example, they were trying to get him the ball and stuff, and just didn't seem like Josh McDaniels was a big fan of Waller. It seemed like he was a big fan of them, and that's okay, Relationships work out, they don't work out, and that's just what it is, right? But nonetheless, him and Bellinger, plus that receiving corps, just got a whole lot better. But here's the big issue. As well as that did get better, now you got a situation with Saquon, and the question is, are the Giants better with him or without him? And my answer is they're not better without him, right? You can go in the second round and go get another running back. I'm not saying that, and maybe get the same production. But Saquon was a first-round, second pick for a reason. The guy is all-world talent. He can be an entire offense. He just got to stay healthy. But, Monday, I suppose, between now and Monday, we'll find out more on what's going on with him. But I hope a contract gets done because that'd be a shame if it didn't, just because I know how much he wants to be there. I know how much Giants fans want him to be there, and his teammates love him. And that would be a hard loss, and that's why we now could talk about Eric Gray, and he's a good player, and Matt Breida's back, and you got Gary Brightwell, who's productive in his minutes, but Saquon is that Giants team heart and soul. And that's not to take away anything else. I mean, Daniel Jones played very well too, but it's really hard to lose him, and I do think that a contract will be come done by Monday, but I can't guarantee that, obviously. But nonetheless, now the final verdict after I just reviewed their offseason. I do think the Giants are going to go back to the playoffs this year. I think that the only two teams that are locks for the playoffs, in my opinion, is the 49ers and Phillies. I think in Philadelphia, I think Dallas is a good team, but I think they're going to regress at some point. I think that they've been running back the same team for like the past 5 years, and it's just, Brennan Cooks and Stephon Gilmore are great, but, you know, I don't think in theory, if that's who the Giants are having to compete against, they should be able to at least compete for the playoffs against that. Like, my point is there's not a lot of locks in the NFC. So for the Giants, they have all the opportunity in the world. Brian Dable won Coach of the Year, and it's a big time to have him. But with that being said, that's my season review. I will give them a grade. I'll probably give them an A for their offseason. They filled all their needs with quality players, not just players, quality players. And the future is bright for them. But with that being said, the next team we will be reviewing is the Washington Commanders. So stay tuned for that video that would hopefully be coming out tomorrow or during the week next week. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. Please come back and watch more videos. It was fun. Thank you.